Well, in the last few days, there's been new statistics released by the CSO about the number of tourists coming here and the amount of money they're spending. Both of them are down. The industry has become increasingly reliant on US visitors in recent years, and the economy there is looking increasingly shaky. So is there reason to worry about the industry and the jobs within it? We'll discuss all that in a moment, but first here's Conor Wilson.
Ireland might be the land of 1,000 welcomes, but so far in 2025, we might have a few left over. Figures released yesterday by the CSO told us that the number of tourists visiting the country is down 7.5% on last year. Spending by tourists is down by nearly €1 billion for the same period, and the amount spent on accommodation is also down by 13%. On Stephen's Green, the Little Museum of Dublin reopened this summer after renovations kept it closed for over a year.
Hiberno English is the English that we speak here in Ireland.
There's two stories to tell, two perspectives. There's the industry itself, and then there's the individual businesses, the organisations that are running, and they can be very different experiences. Here at the museum, we've had a bumper summer. We were recently voted in the top 1% of global attractions on TripAdvisor, which is a good news story, not just for Dublin, but for the tourism sector as a whole, you know, and other peers in the industry as well have had other great experiences as well. So I don't think we should panic. There are positives.
Figures within the tourism industry have said that these CSO stats don't tally with what their own members are saying. So what is the real story behind the numbers?
One of the key things here that people in the hospitality sector are telling me is that there has been a dip in the number of Americans coming to Ireland. And an awful lot of that would be as a result of the political uncertainty in the United States. And of course, Americans are by far the most valuable tourists that come into Ireland.
It's a grey Thursday morning at the end of October in Dublin. It's wet, it's cold, but as you can see, there's still plenty of tourists walking up and down Grafton Street. But do they feel that they're getting value for money here?
It was
it's
more expensive than I expected, but not to put you off.
We've been places like Iceland, and Iceland was oh my god, that's a lot.
What have you bought at Carol's?
Family Crest, because that's my actual family name.
How have you found the prices, the value for money in Ireland so far?
A lot more expensive than most of Europe and the UK. I'm surprised actually, yeah. Like I looked at McDonald's, what you can get in Spain for say €5, you're paying €8 at McDonald's.
I didn't think the country would be so beautiful. The people are kind also, and it was a great experience, and the Temple Bar pub, amazing.
Do you think that Ireland is an expensive place to visit?
No, absolutely not. No, we didn't. We come from Paris, so it's very expensive. So here it's quite normal. Cheap. Normal.
I very rarely hear tourists complain about high prices in Ireland because they're expecting it. They have done a little bit of research. They know it's going to be raining. They know that they're going to have to pay €5 or €6 or €7 for a pint of Guinness, or even more if they go to Temple Bar. So they're not surprised by it, and I don't believe they're put off by it. And it's not just me saying this. If you look at all the research from Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Ireland, tourists very rarely highlight high prices as a reason why they would not come back to this country.
But that's for the tourists who did come. It's not as easy for us to gauge the reasons for other tourists not coming to Ireland. It's not all about money either. There are, of course, plenty of great cultural and natural attractions across the country that cost nothing to visit. A simple stroll around a new city can be one of the best parts of a holiday. But is our pursuit of tourism in danger of eroding the very things tourists come here to experience?
I think one of the dangers would be that if there's too many tourists and if there's not enough resources put in for local people, the people who live in these communities, well then you're just going to turn the country into a theme park. And I think one of the things that Americans and French people and Germans who come to this country really value is the authenticity of the country. And we will lose that and we will diminish that very much at our peril.
Foreign tourists are spending more than €5 billion in Ireland every year. It's a valuable sector, employing close to 250,000 people. So should we be worried about what the CSO figures for 2025 are telling us?
Data figures, when they come out, they actually give us an opportunity to reflect, I think, to think more critically about the industry and what are our ambitions and what are our goals. It's not about hitting the panic button at this moment in time. Those numbers, that data always fluctuates monthly, annually. So I think there are good reasons for us to be positive as well.
Conor Wilson was reporting there, and I'm now joined here in studio by Eoghan O'Mara Walsh, Chief Executive of the Irish Tourism Industry Federation, and Eoghan Corry, who is Editor of Travel Extra. Welcome to both Owens. Let me start with you, Eoghan O'Mara Walsh. The stats, how do you explain the fact that the figures and the numbers have gone down?
Well, there's a slight misalignment between the CSO numbers and industry data. So it certainly hasn't been a great year, but all the industry data and intelligence we have for the first 9 months of the year suggests a flat year or one that's marginally down, whereas the CSO are reporting more alarming kind of double-digit decreases.
Mind you, even a little bit down, that's probably not great either, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, it's been a challenging enough year for Irish tourism. Recurring feedback from industry partners around the country is that turnover is flat, as I say, marginally down, but the big pressure point is cost of business. That's really eating into profit margins. North America is strong. That's very important. They travel around the country. They spend freely. They're a very valuable market. But other markets, Europe and GB in particular, are soft.
You're worried, aren't you, Eoghan? You think there's a fundamental problem here?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of head scratching about the CSO figures. The methodology was changed. That's easy. If you look at it, we're on an island, it's easy to measure the number of people coming on and off through our ports and airports. If you look at pre-pandemic, the proportion was about 55-45 inbound. Now it's gone the other way, 32, and yesterday's figures, 32% inbound, 68% outbound. So that shows they probably, the methodology changed, but there's still a core message here. We've got shrinking holidays, they're spending a day less, they're spending less per head. The actual spend is down, the number's slightly up for September. But if you look at pre-pandemic, we're 40% down. We're going to do about 6.2 million in the calendar year. You're reading from yesterday, 2.3 each from Britain and Europe and 1.5 from North America. We've become heavily dependent on North America. They are by a margin the biggest spenders. And if anything shakes that up, a stock exchange uncertainty is more likely to shake it up than geopolitics. But if anything shakes that up, we're looking at a fairly grim next couple of years, particularly when you consider the bookings for 2025 were made long in advance.
That's a fair point about the US market, isn't it? And I'm conscious of people watching who are in this industry. It's a huge worry for so many people who are involved.
Yeah, I mean, first up, tourism is the largest indigenous industry in the country, biggest regional employer. If you look across big swathes of, say, the Wild Atlantic Way, there's very little other economic activity but for tourism, so it really matters. But we are very dependent, there's no two ways about it, very dependent on the North American market, and we do need to market diversify. So we have to deepen and defend that North American business because it's too important to turn our back on.
Did we focus on it too much, Eoghan? Did we weigh too heavily on that market?
Well, I think a lot of this follows air access. So there was really strong air access and air connectivity put on, particularly by Aer Lingus, across the Atlantic, and that feeds tourism. So obviously the marketing money kind of followed where the air access was. But we do need to grow European business because, as Eoghan says, if something happens in the US and with tariffs and with Trump and with the weakening dollar, who knows, we do need to fish from other ponds as well.
How easy would it be to pivot, though, Eoghan, from, say, relying so heavily in the US market, I suppose, to European and UK markets?
Some of it's out of our control. Brexit, Britain's been bleeding for 9 years. France is down 35%. That's a very hard one to explain. Germany down 11%. But it's all about beds and access. And we have problems in both areas. The same infrastructure that you're talking about every week in this programme, delivering the infrastructure that's affecting tourism. We're 3,000 hotel beds short in Dublin, and in almost every other town, 700, 800 short of what we need. We need more beds, and we have the own goal of the Dublin Airport passenger cap, which is denying access. It's a big, big problem. And there is no climate dimension to this, by the way. The aircraft that aren't flying to Dublin are going to fly somewhere else. So it's completely self-inflicted. Next week at World Travel Market, 200 countries competing for our tourists. We need to be out there competing. We need to be growing that 6.3 to more. And I'm not sure that consensus that we had in Ireland that tourism is a good thing is still being challenged. It's being challenged too much in the current debate.
What also about the cost here? It was interesting in Connor's report. There were mixed opinions from the tourists he spoke to, but the US tourist tends to be relatively wealthy here.
Yes.
So would it seem more expensive for the UK or European tourists?
We obsess a little bit, sorry, Eoghan, we obsess a little bit about what our expense, it doesn't show up internationally, because the same pressures that Eoghan is giving out about on behalf of his members are applying all across Europe. Everyone's prices are drifting up, and the key thing is our access fares, thanks to Ryanair and thanks to Aer Lingus' low fares, our access fares tend to be cheaper than an awful lot of other countries. We do well on price, but we got to be careful, we got to mind it.
Yeah, I think value is critical. So we are an expensive country in which to holiday. There's no two ways about that. There's no point, kidding ourselves. We're now a Northern European country in terms of cost, similar to the Scandi countries. But we have to maintain our value for money proposition. We're never going to be the cheapest destination, but we have to make sure that it's a very memorable, compelling experience for the visitor. And thankfully, data from Fort Ireland in particular supports that.
And what about the Conor Pope mentioning there that tourists don't want to be surrounded by other tourists? Like, are we over-minded, in other words?
I think we're quite some way from over-tourism or the fear of over-tourism. I mean, there's lots of growth still to secure. Eoghan made a couple of very good points there. We have capacity constraints in Irish tourism at the moment, from the Dublin Airport passenger cap right through to a shortage of hotels, through to the dangerous kind of short-term letting legislation that is coming down the tracks, which could denude rural and coastal Ireland of holiday homes. So there's lots going on, but we also, on a supply side, we have those issues. On a demand side, we really need to invest heavily in marketing.
We have a misguided politicians chasing down short-term rentals in the hope that it will deliver it into the long-term rental market. The international experience is it does the opposite. It cuts off tourist options, and it could cost us more than half of our tourist beds unless something is done about this.
Okay, well, Eoghan and Eoghan, thanks so much for coming in tonight.
Thanks, Barry.